We have been going over some of the announcements as part of our budget. We'll do the full budget next week, and I think people will be really pleased with our fiscal outlook. But we were able to talk about some of the things we're doing, huge investments in education. We're doing a lot with environmental quality and water resources, and there'll be other segments that I think are very, very important. One of the things we're most proud of is in this budget that we'll be unveiling is what we're going to do to support the men and women of law enforcement. And as most of you remember, you go back last year, the summer of 2020, you had huge movements in different parts of the country, municipalities, even state levels, to attack law enforcement, to defund law enforcement, and many municipalities did take a huge chunk out of their law enforcement budgets, and now they're racing to try to figure out how to get it back in because crime has skyrocketed, and it's truly been one of the most disastrous policies that anyone's ever tried to implement, this whole defund law enforcement. And you see the effects of this every single day in jurisdictions that indulge with poor policies when they're soft on crime. You look at people getting let out without bail now. You just let them right out in different states and different parts of the country. That has catastrophic consequences for public safety. And so, I'm proud to say, even when that was kind of the cause du jour of the media in Florida, we never budged an inch here. We stood with law enforcement the entire time. Last summer, we made clear we had their back. We wanted to make sure our communities were kept safe. And we wanted to show our appreciation that as other jurisdictions were defunding law enforcement or taking money away, that we would fund and then some. And so the budget that I signed for this current fiscal year included $1,000 bonuses for every sworn law enforcement officer, first responder, and EMT who were proud that we're able to do that. But we also are going to do much more than that. For the upcoming session in our budget, we're going to have some long-term support, particularly for state law enforcement agencies, and we are going to be putting our money where our mouth is, enforcement officers, by 20% to help our state law enforcement agencies recruit more law enforcement officers. Additionally, and maybe most importantly for the folks we have here, my proposal also, probably anywhere in the country, we feel that it's warranted. We also feel it's the right thing to do, and we feel that we have an opportunity strategically to get an advantage and to recruit not just great people in our state to go into it, which we'll do, but also some of the best throughout the country who are looking for greener pastures. And so we're proud of this. I think we'll get strong support in the legislature for it. And I'm just happy to be able to be leading the effort and leading the charge here. I want Chief Mark Brown from the Highway Patrol to be able to come up and say a few things.
Thank you, Governor. On behalf of the Florida Highway Patrol and all state law enforcement, I'd like to extend our sincere appreciation to the Governor DeSantis for his unwavering support for the men and women in law enforcement, not only in our state, but across the country. As we celebrated Thanksgiving just recently, I couldn't help but, think about how grateful I am for the governor's leadership and for his willingness to do the right thing and what's best for the people of our state. This pay proposal will go a long way to support our current members who do a great job day in and day out. Our state law enforcement officers provide
one of the things I think that's been most frustrating to witness in terms of law enforcement is how anti-law enforcement narratives are consistently spun by these national corporate media outlets. They will swoop into a community, they will create a false narrative, and then they kind of just leave and they never correct the record when what they're saying is obviously false. And we're seeing that right now in real time with Waukesha, Wisconsin. In terms of what happened there, you will look at some of these corporate outlets and they will say that an SUV drove into a parade of Christmas folks. And you're thinking, like, really? Is that how it works? The SUVs, they just drive by themselves? This just kind of happened? And they say, oh, this was a big accident. You never actually hear the discussion about who committed this, what was the motivation. This guy was a career criminal, let out on, didn't really have any bail, basically, should not have even been on the street, had clear anti-white animus, and this was an intentional act. And it seems like, for corporate press, they're more apt to characterize a parent who goes to a school board meeting to protest bad policies as a domestic terrorist than somebody who intentionally rams an SUV into a crowd of innocent people. So you have at least 6 have died. You have many more that have been injured. I know many people are in the hospital. And so let's just be clear. This was not a car just driving in. This was an attack by a felon who did that, who should not have been on the street. And we'll see what the actual motivation was. It very well may have been in response to what happened with Kyle Rittenhouse. And you have to wonder if that's the case. Almost assuredly, this guy's view of Rittenhouse was colored by all these media lies. He brought a rifle across state lines. That's a lie. They said that the initial altercation with Jacob Blake, that Blake was unarmed. That's a lie. They covered up Blake's criminal history. And then they said that Rittenhouse shot. And first of all, when you're self-defense, it doesn't matter, kind of what race. But they would say that he shot. Most people didn't know that he shot 3 white people. People thought. So that's what the media has been doing, and they tend to point a target on law enforcement's back. But this is just wrong, and these lies have got to stop. And if it doesn't fit your narrative, sweeping the facts under the rug is not doing the service that people deserve. It is what we expect, unfortunately, from a lot of these places, but it's wrong. And I think the way they've treated law enforcement across the board over the last 2 years has been an absolute disgrace. So let's just be clear. They are not wanting to cover this Wisconsin thing for what it is. They are not wanting the facts to come out the way they are, because the facts do not support their narrative. And it's all about pursuing partisan narratives.